So today's topic's a fun one. It's really about, labor, what people are going to do as the young. I'm thinking to myself, I have 5 nephews and about 5 nieces. Plus, I have 2 boys, my sons, and a daughter, all between the ages of 18 and 25. Only one of them is gainfully employed. Now, he has graduated with a master's. The rest of them are either on hiatus or in process of pursuing an
Working it out.
education. So, but all of them, basically in this theory. Now, the other thing is a lot of them have been using all their connections as well as many others. So I've never had this many calls from various people who are either in school, just finished school, or on hiatus looking for even an internship. So I've never had this many where I'm fielding lots of calls just saying like, I don't have that many positions. I mean, I can help you here and there. And some of them vary. One of them is, considering going to grad school in robotics. One of them's in economics undergrad right now and considering going into law school, but wanting to look at, can I do economic data or something like that? One of them's an engineer and looking at whether or not he does engineering interns, but he can't seem to find any. But I imagine he's mechanical engineering, so I assume Lockheed Martin will have a lot of internships. So that might be one that, he ends up having lots of stuff. But there's such a demand going on. And then we see the recent job numbers. We were expecting 58,000 jobs to be created. It was 94,000 jobs lost. So there's definitely an economy hitting where we have some missing jobs and a lot of young people. What's weird is I did not think that even if upon graduating from college that I was going to get my dream job. It was always reality, like I'm going to have a rubbish job and I'm going to have to work up.
I think that shifted a while ago, and I'm in a similar boat. I've got 5 children between the ages of 18 and 2 as well.
Yeah, I see you have a picture of them all like they're.
Well, no, yeah, that's the baby. No, this
the
is
the family photo.
This is my evolution. So
This
is where we're at now. 1 wheeling. That one.
They're gonna have like a wheelchair on a one wheel, and you're gonna be.
Yeah, but my kids are a little bit younger than yours. I started later than you. I'm a little bit slower than you.
Mm.
And my oldest is.
I get in, it's just done. It's like a 20-second event.
I'm a slow cook, but my oldest is about to graduate high school over there in May.
Wow.
In Arizona. But I've had this discussion with him, ongoing, because I'm kind of worried about what he wants to do. And the problem is he doesn't know what he wants to do. And I understand why, because for his generation now, what is school? What have they been doing at school for the last 10 years? And not just that, the information dump that has, even for us adults and educated, I was going through university still in the last decade. I don't know about you. I think you were too, right? And just the amount of new stuff that was coming out while we were at school, there's no way that they're teaching anything to kids right now. They're just babysitting them. And in Australia, especially, that they're just teaching them how to fit into a system when they graduate. So
yeah, but hasn't that always been that case? Like, how many people end up using their degree?
But it was different. No, once upon a time, we were being trained at school to fulfill a role in a service role or a job role. And even I remember having career counselors and stuff. And, my parents literally thought...
They still exist.
Yeah, but I'm sure they don't do the same job that they did when I was around, because they really tried to steer you into one direction, right?
I'll bet most people do it on AI now.
AI, what am I good at, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, not only that, careers and industries have changed so fast in the last 10, 15 years. And so now we're actually seeing entire industries be replaced by automation. And I think teaching will be eventually replaced by automation. We're doing learning right now as we work with these machines.
So many different mediums.
Yeah. So I think the way we look at literacy in the near future is going to be completely different if we're relying on technology.
I wanted to show some charts. This one is participation rate. So this is how many people are out in the workforce that, could work, but are deciding not to work. So you see it took a massive dive during COVID. So those of you who aren't watching, I'm showing it by Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank. They put together data, and it's basically a seasonal chart, which means each point is annualized. And it's showing that during COVID, there's just a cliff that drops down. Participation rate's off. But then you see it slowly come back, but now it's starting to drop back down again to about 62.1%. So when you put that in perspective, I also broke down like, how is it by sex? Because that one's based on a survey of general data, and it's split kind of mostly male, but it's like 47% female. But then there's another stat in there that goes from just direct data of census, 7 million unemployed men, all males in the working age, right? And of them, if you take out those who are on disability and the various things that put them in, there's about 2 million that don't have a legitimate excuse for not working. 2 million. And so it's coincidentally that the 62% represents about 2 million missing workers as well. So it turns out there are a lot more male jobs that are missing out there in the workforce than any others. Not that it's off, but there's a lot of male. And I do kind of want, I think this happens to both male and female. I don't think it's unique in that, but the pizzazz of a new job has definitely changed. Like, for example, I think we're going to go through another chart here of on Anthropic's map that they put out. And an example is a plumber now, because there are so many few tradespeople now doing plumbing. They're making like $200,000 a year. And yet young people don't see that as a career trajectory. So not a lot of people are lining up to, be a plumber. And so there's more plumbers are making even more because there's fewer of them.
I think we talked about this in a few episodes before, and I've been saying this for a few years now, because the speed of technology is not new. And if you started a academic program even 4 years ago, when you're graduating, the industry's changed, and the jobs that you were training for, that you thought you were going to apply for when you went to school, are now all different kind of jobs. Like even like developing is a good example, right? So developers, they were being told just recently that they're all going to be replaced, right?
Programmers, like software developers. Yeah.
Software developers. Yeah. Okay. But now there's a new career category opening up called AI assistants or something like that, right? And so now they're going to get paid more than they were getting paid as developers to check code that people that are getting paid less to use AI to create.
Right. Well, this is Joseph Sumner, right? The economist who, created the theory of creative destruction. So his is, and as soon as technology comes out, a lot of jobs there go out. But now all the people running in the back, there's a whole bunch of jobs there. And so the example I use are self-checkout at the grocery store. There's fewer people bagging your groceries and doing checkout, but now the people running those machines, there's a lot more jobs creating and installing and maintaining all those machines. So it ends up creating, more jobs as, there's this creative destruction. So it does seem like, that is out there, but I imagine it's changing so fast now. It's hard to kind of narrow down what you want to do, like what career path is, there's something to do.
Can I share why I think that is too? Because the options have just exploded for individuals, right? Because of technology, and this is before AI. This is we're talking about entrepreneurial and the original startups, and the original I'm talking about Amazon, these were all. This is what AI is using now to look smarter. It's really just automation still. So automation came in decades ago, and we saw that replace jobs. We saw that take out monster giant chains, right? And, we saw Blockbuster fall and Netflix replace it, right? So we've been seeing automation for a while, but now what we have now is, I would call it like adaptive automation or live automation. And that's what they're calling AI, but it's not AI yet. It's nothing close to it. It's just more
someone
automation.
Gave a great analogy as they said, well, first there was the airplane, right? So you need some software to run the airplane. Then there was Copilot. And then there's autopilot, but autopilot still has a pilot, right? And so the autonomous plane would be the one that everybody's talking about. That's the AGI in the future. But right now we're really just looking at, autopilot. I thought that was a nice analogy to kind of say, okay, that's basically how software is working now. So now there's the software literally working, but you have to help it point it in all the various directions or it goes off.
And it's getting faster and easier to interact with it, or, and we can improve it because we can test faster. And then I think that's also something that came out of the entrepreneurial craze of the last kind of decades, is that you had a lot more humans testing new concepts and systems and ideas faster using tech. They didn't need to pay, teams, and then that tech would either work or fail. And that's where we're at now. We're all riding on the shoulders of all these exponential failures. It's only going to get more. So I see a lot more potential. I know there's a lot of gloom and doom, but I think that because the learning model is flattening now,
it's been a lot of change for you too, Ethan, over the last year.
Dude, look at this. I didn't have a white beard before right now. And I was doing nothing a year ago, and I'm flat out now. So It is insane. And automation was supposed to make life easier, right? And I've just got more tasks
That's more work
right?
to do.
Yeah.
So you think of all the firms that used to be, it's like, Edgar and Son, and you'd have all these businesses that were really generational businesses. It was the grandfather works with the son, and the son, they all kind of do this thing like, oh, my father was a police officer, I'm a police officer, his father was a police officer. There's lots of this generational stuff happening. As things are turning, I looked into, really our aging population. So what is it? And we're looking at the next 5 years. What stat I have here is the time only 13.5% of U.S. employees were part-timers. Over 55 years later, February's employment report. Oh, this is a part-time. So we have an increase in part-time work. So it was 13% in 68. It's now 17.5% in part-time work. I actually have a chart to kind of show where this is, gone and taken off. If you're listening, what I'm showing is really the swing. You look at 2008. And 2008, you really see the gig economy take off, right? Everything's part-time. Full-time is that purple bit. So you see a lot more jobs coming in. It represented almost 83% of jobs in like 2010. And then 2016, it inverts back to where full-time jobs are going. There's this massive swing during COVID, but everything balances out. But you see now this massive trend again to where part-time work, gig economy, is soon to match full-time employment. And so as that trend continues and you see, retirees now stepping into their retirement and stepping away from what are jobs, there's less of an influence on these young people to basically just, I also did some data on deportations to say, okay, well, if we have a lot of missing, in the labor force, how does immigration factor into it? And that's because the Anthropic chart we're about to share. And you'll find this interesting. In 2024, we know who was president. That was Biden. There were 778,000 deportations. Right now, 605,000. But it's estimated to get to about 680,000. So as much as they're making the news and spending, DHS spending $220 million on ad campaigns, it's even less than when no one even knew it was happening. So a lot of ruckus. However, deportations.
Just to add some context, though, because it does sound like a massive loss, but if you compared that with the amount of people coming into America still in 2024, as opposed to the amount of people coming into America now in 2025, there's going to be a massive drop. So if you looked at it as a percentage rate of deportation.
And wait, you're talking about illegal. So what's the net in illegal?
Not just illegal. I'm sure your legal immigration is down.
I didn't look it up. I do wonder. I know tourism was down by a lot. I didn't look at that.
Every boomer.
But that's just because nobody wants to come here.
Well, it's because the TVs here tell the old people that if they go to America, that Trump's going to arrest them.
Right.
It's insane. My parents actually believe that. I got into a fight with my dad last week because he's afraid to go to America.
He'll get deported back to Croatia.
Because he's like, I said some bad things about Trump on Facebook. I'm like, Dad, we live in Australia where you actually get arrested for posting bad shit on Facebook. Like, it's insane. Anyway, you live in the world, you live in your own reality, right?
So let's pull up. I'm going to pull up this one now from Anthropic, which has really taken over the news, and let's kind of talk through this a little bit because Anthropic put together a map. For those listening, it's one of these contextual round circular geographical maps that shows various industries, and it gives areas of where AI is predictive to take over, even 90% of, or 90% of where AI is doing is in this space. So the one thing they don't talk about is, for instance, business and finance. How much of business and finance is software? And most of these industries about 20%. So I would say most of this is going after about 20%, and but that's sort of left out. Can AI do more now? However, the part to really recognize is you look at transportation, production, infrastructure and repair, construction, agriculture, sales, personal care, grounds maintenance, food services, protective services. Just based on most of these are generally, I'm not saying they're not all of them, but generally these are a lot of male jobs. And what's interesting is this is where AI is not going after. Those are the segments AI is not touching, yet that's where the largest job shortages are. And guess where everybody's trying to get a job? Where there's lots of employees are in management, business and finance, computer and math, architecture, the life sciences, legal. Everybody wants a legal or a doctor, arts and media, healthcare, and education. So there are lots trying to get into that space, and that's where it's saying, AI is going after. So it does tend to create a mismatch where you have a job shortage. We do have a labor shortage in this country, yet they're happening at the lower. I don't even want to say low ranks, because plumbing you can make $200,000, right? It's happening in the more labor intensive places, whereas the less labor intensive, the jobs that have more of a pizzazz do have more people wanting to do those jobs. But AI is knocking on your door saying like, hey, we're going to come and try to reduce the number of people in your industry by 20 to 30%.
I see it slightly differently though too, because what we're going through really, and it started decades ago, AI is, we're still just at the beginning of it. Like AI is part of the continuing evolution of humans doing the work to robots doing the work, right? But before automation, we had mechanism, and mechanism took out humans out of a lot of things, right? Like we were able to scale and mass produce a lot faster because of mechanics, because of the steam engine. And then we went to digital. We got rid of computers and replaced it with like what we call computers today. So we got rid of computer people and replaced them with the computer machines.
Well, to your point, Elon Musk tweeted out this picture. He says, here's the analogy. This is a room full of computers once upon a time. And computer was a whole bunch of women doing accounting, right? By pencil. They were called computers. They were computing. They were doing it. So that, now what is a computer?
And so when I look at that map, it's made by people who are living in a bubble. And what I'm saying is they see the most opportunity in the areas they've already had the most opportunity. And that's the incorrect way to see it. I look at all those other industries.
You see it as Anthropic basically saying, dude, we're staking a flag. Here's where this is where we're going to start a war.
I'm saying Anthropic is late to the game, and they're trying to take all of the hype that everyone else built and steal that magic, because they've come in with a lot less money in research and development. So they're laughing their way. But what I'm saying is they're still not smart. The smartest people in the room would be the ones working out, how do I automate all of those other industries where tech is not touching yet? Because the plumbers and the tradesmen and all these other people that don't know how to use a computer, they only know how to use their hands. They're the ones who are going to have massive increase, massive volume. Like you're saying, there's not enough plumbers. They have to hire too many people to help them get the work. But if they could automate all of that and they could run it from the palm of their phone, then they'll be making millions of dollars, right? So, and it's people who are going into the tech industry that should be looking at those areas of how they can actually use the tech they've got now and use it adjacent to an industry that doesn't have any tech. And that's
really,
where
you're saying these more educated groups that are having AI come after the jobs, as they lose the job, they're going to say, hey, I can still be innovative in my segment, but I'm going to innovate in the places that don't have AI, and there's a job shortage.
Yeah, it's like the creative industry right now, right? If you're still running to the traditional way of making content, it's going to be really hard, you know? But if you're adapting the new technologies, you're going to be overwhelmed with work. So this is what's happening in the creative industry. So they were saying that the creative industry would be one of the last places to touch. And we're seeing now, like even Krok, which is slow to the game, Krok is making some crazy shit.
Is that
right?
because Krok can't drink? Is that really like Krok can't be on LSD? This is the real problem.
It's because people just don't realize that tech, it used to be expensive, but it's only going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so that's why jobs and manual labor is not going to be worth it for people, because you can get paid through not doing the physical labor, and you can get paid more than once because you can copy and paste your work. That's
But
what the new
that's any industry, right? A tool that especially
well,
will help you
well,
scale.
but there's more. In the past, like as a filmmaker, you make a film and you just sell it. You don't have to make it again, right?
Right.
But now, talking about the plumber again, if I go build a plumber a website and I charge him to host it, keep a sales funnel going for him, now I'm getting paid over and over again, and I can copy and paste that. I can do that to every plumber in the yellow pages. You know
So
what I mean?
basically
So,
filling in the physical world
yeah.
with some technology solutions.
And so now I'm creating more work, and it probably adds to the part-time, because now I can work part-time and have our recurring monthly income, which is the dream.
Well, here's one. Here's the stat I was trying to remember before, and it was just on the wrong bullet point, is that by 2031, 41% of day labor workers will be retiring. So that's crazy.
That's
So
it.
you
Yeah,
really
yeah,
split the
yeah.
industry. Day labor workers are much older. They've been doing a different, which also connects to that comment I was saying about, father and son in the same business. It's grandfathers don't have a lot of advice to share on their grandkids because they're like, well, it's a whole different space for the job that you thought was great. They don't want to go into it. The job is no longer, sexy. It's not this amazing job. So what do boys and girls, everyone, I mean, there is this kind of bar of what they want a sexy job to be. So is it going to be them going out to solve these new day labor problems, or somebody's going to have to do this work?
There's mixed messages. I'll tell you why. Because you've got a lot of people, so the doomsdayers are saying there's not going to be any jobs, universal basic income. And so people are getting mixed messages anyway. And then you've the reality where there's no expert class anymore. And that's why we're all going to have to rely on bloody AI and digital records, because there's not going to be any real experts. There hasn't been any real experts. People are career shifting. They're not staying long enough. You've had people gatekeeping. Science has been stagnant for like 50, 60 years. Like, there's real issues with not having any younger generations that have actually been trained in the first principles and real methodology. Everyone's just relying on recorded data that possibly could be corrupt.
Well, just in the Wall Street Journal today, there's an article about 3 teenagers. Literally, one was 12. It's like this genius kid. What they built was the company's now worth $1 billion. So they're teenagers, literally. So I think one of them, who was 12, I think he's 15 now. So when they did the first financing, his father had to sign all the docs because he wasn't 18 old enough. However, what the company does is it creates all these agents to pretend to be human. And each one acts individually, and they train it to be like, all right, it's like you're MAGA female, you're MAGA male, you're super liberal, crazy hippie. So they create them, and then they go and find the personalities, and they grow. And then they become focus groups. So now their company is $1 billion company. McDonald's is using them. Starbucks is using them. All these companies are using them to help direct things. In their earlier days, they tried to predict elections to see, all right, would we match with the elections? They missed, and it actually thought Kamala Harris would win. But this was almost 12 months ago, and now their predictions are within like a 5% margin. That just shows you, like, even focus groups, like even your opinion isn't mattering anymore as they build these companies. And I know you were the one talking about AMI and how they're going to use LLM to change some stuff.
Because what I'm saying is that's what's really happening in the LLM world anyway. So AI right now is, because it's capped, because it's peak, and you're actually on the down curve of the bell, right? It's an S curve or whatever it is. So right now, the way to strengthen the models is to have the best data sets, to have the best libraries, to have the best collections of information and habits, right? So that's where they're going. But yeah, there is another company out of Paris, which they're betting against LLMs because they see the LLM is not AI. It's just...
It truly has. It seems to have plateaued. Like, the amount of data they need is so gigantic to even have very small marginal increases in what they can do.
Yeah, and so AMI is looking at real world data collecting, making sensors that it could use in the physical world to be used in stuff like engineering, medicine, materials development, like it's a real science application, not real artificial intelligence yet, but actually using it for real accuracy instead of as a playmate.
Instead of creating like a social media network
It,
of AI
or,
bots talking to each other.
or an assistant that says, you're a genius.
Well, all this world with, this market of AI and what's impacting labor, you see more and more states are in a panic. It brought up a lot of debate as Anthropic put out that map because states are literally trying to say, we need to regulate this. I mean, there's a lot of liberals, and it brings up a interesting question at its core. But first, we did have the president in December. He put an executive order. I wrote down what it was. It's the Ensuring a National Policy Framework for Artificial Intelligence. So he put an executive order that basically says states cannot regulate AI. It's not law. It's an executive order. It's so loose, no one really knows. But most states are like, oh, we can't do anything. Their hands tied. But the truth is, what regulation can you or would you do to, try to, if you could protect a job in a state? Like, what is there?
Well, first of all, there's going to be a new definition of that in a few years, for starters. The only people that are really using the term AI are people using it for marketing. And unfortunately, a lot of people fell for it, and they're going to keep falling for it for a little while. But what you're going to have is, because we're solutions based, that's how we work, people are going to come in and fix that gap, right? So there's going to be people coming in and building the architecture for the foundation so that whatever AI is in the future will actually marry into the systems and the understanding and learning capabilities we have now. But I don't know if I've had this joke with you before, but every day right now, a million people are putting the same prompt into chat. And that chat goes to a data center. You know what I mean? And, I don't know how much, it's not just power.
Do you still use please and thank you? I still do. I talk to Krok. I'm like, it just feels rude. It just feels rude to ask him to tell him to do something without saying thank you, even though it's a bunch of wasted electricity.
Elon Musk just got evaluated at $1 trillion because he's going to send a Dyson storm into the universe.
I saw that the AOC tweet where she's like, he's just a billionaire, and his response was, trillionaire.
Yeah. But the thing is, so even with the power thing, I just heard Sam Altman say that in the last year or so, they reduced the water need for AI by an amazing amount. It just seems like the nerds who are calling it AI right now, they've got a witch's cauldron and they're giving it to everyone and it works. But the thing is, there's some people now that are taking the witch's cauldron and they're looking at it and they're taking the lizard's tail out and they're taking a sip and it still works. And then they're taking the frog's breath out and they're having a sip and it still works. You know what I mean? So what we're going to see is people actually using and creating new products. And then the people that are still championing AI learning language models right now, they're still going to be trying to hand out this witch's potion and telling you it does everything, but it doesn't. And they're going to keep telling you it's 6 months, 12 months. Like even now, Elon Musk just had a conversation on a podcast. I think this was 24 hours ago. It was live on X. And, he was asked, when are we going to get AGI? And he said, maybe 2027. And so they keep moving.
I was going to say, he's the one who is, we should have had it already. We were supposed to have robots in our house, doing stuff, right?
Well, we're going to have robots this summer, he thinks. But even robots, that's still the verge of the next, where we're going, I
don't know. But he's promoting consumer robots in your house doing cleaning and cooking. And I think we're a long ways away from even that.
He's saying we're in the singularity, which that's what they're saying would happen when we get AGI. So that's, what I'm saying is the whole conversation is now being diluted and changed and poised for what they're actually going to learn this year. Not what
I have to agree. There's more. It seems like the only ones really promoting or predicting massive changes in what are now these LLM models are the companies of which took massive amount of monies to validate their evaluations, and everybody else is like,
that promise.
Oh, but there are some job changes, right? Isn't the economy now saying okay, well, we are scared, so we literally are laying people off. I mean, Square just laid off 4,000 people because he's like, I think we can actually, do this without, with our AI solutions.
Well, I think some of that is kind of deceiving too, because here, an Australian company just laid off 1,600 people. And
it's like half of Australia's workforce.
It is. It's everyone. no one has a job here anymore. But and they're saying it's because we're looking towards the future and stuff like this. But really, it's because the competition is now starting to catch up to everyone, right? So these big monopolies that had a field day for the last year And even tech, like you're a venture capitalist or you're in investing, so you'll understand that like tech companies have been evaluated way more than they should have been because they can scale faster, because they don't have the costs involved with,
Well,
once you create the product, you're
just
good
in
to go.
just in that data, if you look at the last 2 years, 50% of all venture dollars written went to 10 companies.
And
And
what I'm saying,
they shouldn't
but that,
even be, I wouldn't even call them startups anymore. Like OpenAI is not a startup. They shouldn't get any venture dollars. It should all be private equity money. So, but then 4% of all money went to AI, but
but
50% went to 10 companies.
but if information becomes a commodity again, then you can't bank on scalable copy and paste because no one's going to pay for a pasted copy if they can generate it themselves. They're selling you a product that won't exist. They're selling you invisible clothes. And what they're doing is they're saying, look how good my invisible clothes are today. If you help me build a bigger data center, everyone can get invisible clothes. That is what they're selling. But it's a lie. It's the same lie we've been sold forever.
Well, let's zoom out and take this geopolitically because the states really don't know what to do. They don't know, because I did think through some policies that California might consider, and there've been some ideas bounced around where they said, well, we can require so many jobs per revenue. I'm like, what? It's like, that's a great way to kill a company. So there's not a lot of policies you could enforce around this AI to try to protect specific industries. Even the movie industry tried to with the Writers Guild and a few others to say we're not going to use AI, and then they all came together to make an artificial actress. And it's so strange on how they're going to work. It's technology. They're gonna embrace it.
Where does it make the most sense to use AI right now?
Oh, definitely video. I mean, video is just
No,
powerful.
not even. I'm telling you, like you don't have to use a lot of AI, and the whole world would benefit in a minute. If AI is so smart and smarter than most average people, AI should be politicians.
Yeah, but politicians are some of the dumbest people, so you don't need much. We already had
What
that
I'm saying,
solved.
yeah, what I'm saying is why are the leaders, why are the policymakers not able to make any policy
I
decisions?
see.
Like if we
I
have
see.
intelligence, we should be paying intelligence to make the most important decisions for us, shouldn't we?
Oh.
Like we're doing it backwards. Oh my God. Like what is
So we
wrong with
all
people?
basically vote on, which AI system will make decisions for us.
Well,
So it's
that's what,
like
that's
it's
Sam
going to be
Altman's bet.
OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini. Which one do we want? And they'll lead
It,
this time, maybe next time. But there is that similar
no,
debate going
that's
on
what you
right
should
now,
vote.
right?
Every state should vote for ChatGPT, Krok, or DeepSeek. That's what we should do. Instead of voting for political parties and representatives,
It's which
how about
model you
this?
like.
Where's the first AI political party? That's what we need. We need the first
Uh,
artificial political party. That should be the third party
Well, you may
challenger.
actually get it, right? Because the White
Yes.
House was looking at these, and Anthropic, so they used not Grok, they used Claude to strategize and design so the army used it to do the Venezuela invasion, to go and get Maduro, right? So that entire strategy was built around Claude. So then the White House, like, this is amazing. We need to use this. And in a discussion of which Claude, the CEO of Anthropic, is more of a theorist. He talks about this stuff all the time, but he really left it more in a theory, saying, like, you shouldn't be using this tool to basically watch and survey your citizens, right? And so this angered the White House, and they're like, "What? You can't tell us what to do this." And of course, OpenAI is like, "Hey, we don't care. We'll sell our soul. Give us some money. We'll do it." And so now there's a lot of movement to where they are. It seems like different models are starting to fall within the hands of political, groups. But even that, you go geopolitical, and China is producing, they're our largest competitor in this race to produce the fastest, largest processing power in AI.
Allegedly.
So as that kind of happens within those, you see the world. I mean, some said it was a unipolar. I don't know if it was ever really unipolar, but some still think it is. Trump certainly thinks it is, as he's going around bopping everybody on the head. But I would say it's at least dual polar. I don't really think Russia is in the polar game. It's a vassal state of China. Putin has set his country back 30 years. They have nothing. They haven't been able to build anything. I think the closest thing they've built recently is, oh, we created a vaccine for cancer. And then it went quiet as soon as some people used it and it found that it didn't work.
Again, though, I don't think everyone's making an imaginary race that doesn't exist, because if intelligence is going to be a commodity, we're all just going to be able to tap into it. What you think, if you live in America, you'll be able to know how to build a nuclear bomb, but if you live in Russia, you won't be able to get access to that. Like, how are you going to stop that digital information? How is America going to control a Russian spy going to America and getting on the internet? Like, there's no way to control what you can copy and paste. Basically, code is a magic spell that works in real life. And if you know the magic spell, then you can make anything. And right now,
but you could censor it. I mean, China is trying to build theirs.
They tried to, but
for
even
censor.
Even censorship now, this is what's happening now too. This is why a lot of disclosure, a lot of whistleblowers, like a lot of institutional failures coming out, and across the board, right? Religion, politics, companies. And it's because we used to be able to keep things in containers. Okay. But those containers are slowly being cracked by technology.
Are you implying, because really in order to crack this container, you would need satellite phones. You would need something.
Not just that.
Because right now, China does have a solid lid on the internet. Like, they could literally control any AI or information they wanted based on what it is. The U.S. could as well, but we have a general sense that our bigger problem are the companies are creating bias bots, right? So they're creating bias agents that we're talking to. And so that's more of our problem, is the information is like, I don't quite know which one is truth and which one is just like, I'm biased towards this. Whereas in China, it's actually filtered. And this is the access. So the only way to get this would be you'd have to have something above actual landline physical connection. You would have to have something above that.
I see it differently. There's no way of stopping the container leaks now. There's no way of, every container is going to be opened because there's too many people with access now. And
so getting around, you're like.
So the only way to control containers now is narratives. And they've been training for this for a while. And now it's becoming more obvious. This year it's going to become the most obvious. We're going to be forced into isolation somehow. Not necessarily a virus or anything like that. It could be a war, whatever. But the thing is, right now, the only way to control us, because we talked about this a little bit last week, is that the technology makes us as powerful, or if not more powerful, than kings and queens and presidents. The only way to maintain control now, even geopolitically, is to have a tribe. The only way is to have a tribe. And tribe is from narrative. And narrative is story. Narrative is the Bible. Narrative is the Quran, right?
Well,
and sorry, but I'm not getting religious. I'm saying these are the languages, even what learning language model is based on. So if we're basing intelligence right now on being able to understand language prediction.
You're an Australian, I'm an American, and you're pitching tribe. To us, we relate tribe not being anything specific. It is like, a frame of mind, right? I mean, that's what you're saying as far as tribe.
It's red or blue. What I'm saying is, look at politics now, and you're going to get ostracized for questioning your tribe even more now. So
but as the world changes, those tribes are easier to define. For instance, if you go to China, 95% of the people in China are Chinese. If you go to Japan, most of them are Japanese.
You're looking at tribe wrong. That's not what a tribe is. No, a tribe is Democrats are a tribe.
Right, I just mean in a global race of technology where countries are competing.
No, Australia, if you go to Australia, you wouldn't know, depending on which state you're in and depending on which suburb, you wouldn't know if you're in China or Indonesia or Somalia.
Wouldn't the kangaroos be a big
India.
Giveaway? There's an emu.
I'm telling you, and same with if you go to London or go to anywhere in Europe, some places you don't know where you are. And so what I'm saying, that's not what the tribe is anymore. The tribe is a belief system. It doesn't have to be religion. It could be political. It could be sports-based. The only way to have true power in the future is to be a leader and have subscribers, have followers. That's influence.
Let me push against slightly, all right? Because countries are changing in the fact that they are seeing demographic changes. And if I go back to this kind of duopoly, maybe duopoly is not the best because that would mean they're both benefiting. So it's really, this dual system where you do have kind of a China-centric, it's trying to buddy with Russia, and this U.S.-centric and its allies putting in pressure. But let's just look at some of the things that China's facing.
That's not a real analogy, because what I'm saying is outside of America, when I see Americans, you guys are as controlled as them, but you're controlled through shame.
Well, I
So,
agree.
so
I agree.
you might say China is censored because they can't look something up. Well, in America, you won't look something up because if you do, your neighbor will tell on you, or you won't be able to go to church, or you won't be able to be accepted into your political party. I'm telling you, you guys are shamed, and you're giving up your agency, and you're all turning to your phones. You're going to be in isolation in a minute, so you'll be, you'll form even more of a relationship with your chat, and it's going to keep you tribe based.
Right, fair, but I mean, actual physical world, there is a delineation. Like we have an American president who's going out and saying, "I'm going to tariff the world. I'm going to tariff you. Throw a little tariff here, legal or not, tariffs everywhere." It's like, oh, I got tariff, and then tomorrow, like, no tariffs, tariffs, right? And then you have China, who's like, "Well, fine. You need rare earth minerals. No rare earth minerals for you." So now they're blocking off. So we literally are having, a physical world restriction on what technology is, because the US is like, in order to build all this infrastructure and all this stuff, we need this. China, who, even though a lot of their new electricity has been clean, they're predominantly fossil fuel based energy. So as much as Elon Musk tweets like, "Oh, they're the future," and they have a lot of electric cars, everything, it's still like 64% of all their electricity is produced through fossil fuels. So they are very dependent on oil. So they're in a panic trying to figure out oil. They can't get Venezuelan oil. Now they're going to have problems getting Iranian oil. They're basically stuck having to go back and get some Russian oil. So,
Isn't there a Texas refinery opening up? Like, isn't there a new
oh, well, so you're talking about rare earth minerals?
Oh no, sorry. I thought you were talking
Oh,
about. I thought you were talking
yeah,
about gas.
oil. Yeah, yeah.
Oil.
No,
Yeah.
actually, the U.S. is a net exporter now, mostly because of Texas. Eagle Ford Shale, they export out of Houston, is the largest now LNG, liquid natural gas, and we're the largest supplier to Europe now. So we have replaced Russia. Most of it's coming out of Texas. So when you see oil prices go up, it's bad for the general consumer, but it's really good for the rich people in Texas. So a few people get really wealthy, the rest of them are paying higher prices. But nonetheless, as you see kind of this battle moving around, and now you see China somewhat trying to, pressure back to say, well, if you want to do this, because China needs their trade. As much as they've been able to increase trade, open markets into Europe, which is sort of strange because Europe is like, well, are you helping Russia with this invasion or not? But they have been able to do that. But China has become a manufacturing world, right? They manufacture anything. Americans love cheap crap. It's just like a natural fit. They make lots of rubbish. We love to buy lots of rubbish for cheap. And so it's a natural fit that is very frictional right now. And the rare earth mineral problem is we have lots of rare earth minerals. Alaska has lots of rare earth minerals. Greenland, yes, has some. And Russia also has some. It's weird that they're doing this $12 trillion deal. Everybody has them. The problem with rare earth minerals is, one, it's not densely located. You basically have to kill your entire environment. You're just destroying land, which China is willing to do. And then you have to refine it, which is really bad for people. So in the US, we basically said, like, well, for our own health hazard, we don't want it here. We'd rather you kill yourself somewhere else, and then we'll just benefit it and use it to build our technology. So we have been outsourcing, environmental pollution to China. And China has been happy to take it. And in exchange, they do 90% of the world's refinement of rare earth minerals in China. So that's the fight right now. There's literally, to grow in tech, we got to solve some actual physical problems that create stuff. So I'm going to share this chart to show one
So here's another like long game theory for that though too, right? Maybe America's long game play with the earth's minerals is like they did with the oil, is use everyone else's first,
that
right?
seems to be what we're doing, right?
And then you could do it safely when you have the robots. I think Optimus 4 comes out next summer.
Well, I want to show this chart real quick. This is China's population problem. So you can see we're right in here. They're shrinking right now at about 650,000 people a year, and that will start to accelerate. So you see right over here. So back in 1960, when they were 600 million, this is where they'll be in about 70 years from now. So that's pretty crazy. And for those listening, I just showed a chart where it's, population change for China and how it is drastically. So the exact same numbers that I just gave for the US, where in the next 5 years, you're going to see 41% of the labor force leaving. Well, China has the same thing. So this is a quote by the Minister of Human Resources by the Social Security, Wu Zhizheng. And he stated, according to the estimates of scale of flexible employment, personnel in our country has exceeded 200 million. This is the gig economy that way it went. So even at conservative estimate, this group accounts for 27% of China's total employed population of 740 million and nearly 43% of the 470 million urban workers. So the rural and urban workers, urban is where you're poor. They're trying to get more and more jobs. But that means, almost 50% of people out there are doing gig economy, this flexible service, and then 25% of the rural overall are doing gig economy. So China is about to have a massive problem in the next 5 years as many of the older population start to retire. So here they are. There's so much building up, but yet people are really faced with this older generation about to leave and not a lot to come in, and nobody can get along as far as resources in order to build a lot of the tech that we need.
So just the chart that you just showed is making me kind of chuckle a bit about us using statistics now to predict where things are going to be in the future, right? Because if you look at that graph, where me and you went to high school, you can see the S curve of where we were told China's population was going to go, right?
Everybody, right.
And so what I'm thinking happened, looking at the graph, just my mind thinking in the systems way or causation, it looks like what happened was people in our generation grew up thinking population is out of control. Population is out of control.
Yeah.
And so that was like
well, even before us, they said zero population. They was trying to promote people stop having babies.
But what I'm saying is having influence, not just in China, but in the West, not just the policies we make, but the way we just decide on things is we're overpopulating, we're getting out of control. And so that has been the main cause of depopulation.
Yeah.
Looking at science and trusting it.
But that is weird. It creates the same conundrum where we're at the grasp of like jumping into lots of technologies that can help us with this offsetting of this labor force that is missing, whether by choice, whether by I don't like that sexy job, whether it's labor or aging, whatever it is. We have this technology, but then we also have these resource confinements that governments, be what they will, do not seem to want to come together as they really want a political will before they're willing to come together on any of these resources.
Yeah, but I feel like everything is a slow burn, right? So you look at civilization, it's taken us 200 years to get to where we are, where we, in Western civilization at least, we all supposedly get a say. We have, choices, we have access to all these things, right? And so what I'm saying is 200 years, if you go back more than 200 years, it was all one person wherever you lived. It was all, geopolitically, everyone was under the same law structure because it was whatever their dude said you had to do. And so what I'm saying is I think even though there's challenges and you have left and right, so, you take swings and turns, I think we're still heading in the same direction, which is we're heading towards more freedom, more posterity, evolution. We survived the Ice Age. I think we're going to survive the next challenge,
I agree. I've been thinking, like, what is advice that we would now give to anyone who is kind of in that 18 to 25, your son who's graduated from high school? What does he do? Like, what is that advice? In my own, I'm like, all right, when I went to school, it was sort of the world where you knew your degree wasn't actually going to be what you focused on. Getting a degree was less about what you studied. And it seemed like that in high school. Like nobody really cares how you did in high school. It's a requirement, check. And then getting a bachelor's degree was more of a requirement. But there are some degrees that are like, you did sociology? Interesting, right? There were some that they were like, okay, not very challenging. But then from there, it was like, okay, if you did a master's degree, now we're looking on your field of study, right? And so generally, college and a bachelor's degree was more of, can you prove that you can suffer through 4 years of all kinds of crazy teachers, all kinds of living conditions, party life, and still be responsible. Can you make it through 4 years of being a grown up and come out of it on the other side, having done okay in school, having achieved something? And it was more of just like, the bare minimum to enter into a higher level. And so if you couldn't do it, it was like, well, you're not really the type because your chances are you're out, right? So then how different is it now? I mean, it's not that dissimilar.
I think evolution has forced it back into a more primitive type of thing where it's more of a coming of age experience. Like it's more of a running the gauntlet or an initiation into adulthood. I don't think it's really what it was. And it's because you asked, what would I tell kids who are 18 to 20? I would say, what is it that when you wake up, what's the first thing you think about? And if not that, what's the second thing you think about? And if not that, what's the third thing that you think about? And then what I would say is, if you have at least 3 things that you think about, think which one, if you could allow yourself to.
An 18-year-old boy, what are the 3 things that he thinks about? That's what you want him to.
Maybe not the first one. Maybe not the first one. Save that for later. But the second or third one, like, if it is gaming, if it is motor cars, if it is toilets, like, I don't know, but what I'm saying is if you have a passion in something, you will want to do it and you will want to learn about it and you will become the next expert class, which is where you will get paid. Even with technology is always going to need an expert class to update it on the next best thing. So if you can find a subject or a topic or something that you can't stop thinking about besides sex, then...
But isn't that what uni is for? Isn't that what going to college is? You're exposed to more topics than you knew about. Like, you think you know what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you find like, oh, there's literature, economics, there's accounting. I got a little bit of this, I got a little bit of that.
I would say when it stopped, pre-50s, and even America, pre-50s, America was all about science. You guys were spending money. Science was, they were like the astronauts. They were rock stars. Oppenheimer, Albert Einstein, right? And they were getting paid big, but like these guys were in rooms with kings and presidents. They were everywhere. The best minds in the world today, there's still only a few, and they don't get paid shit. The government doesn't care. After the fall of Berlin and the wall came down, they said, fuck off scientists. And you know what happened then? A dude named Jeffrey Epstein bought up land in anywhere those scientists were converged. So if you worked at Los Alamos, you would go hang out at Zorro Ranch and Epstein would give you money. If you're in New York or any of those places around there, you go hang out with Epstein and give you money. So that's what's happened. Science has been hijacked by an elite
the end,
class.
We're giving this whole Epstein conspiracy in. Man, you left us out.
Well, this will tie into everything. But yeah, I'm telling you, there's more to Epstein than sex trafficking.
This is new to me. This is new to me.
Well, if you look back at who Epstein was, he was involved with the Ryan Contra.
Yeah, he was everywhere.
He's been on the Bush team, Bush Daddy senior team, Pappy.
Everywhere. He's been on everybody's team.
And so what I saw happen was, at the end of the Cold War, you got 8 Pappies aging, and then Pappies dying, and they lose control of the general public because the general public votes Trump instead of Hillary. So the next play is get Epstein to get all the scientists.
All right. Well, we're going to have to cover that one in a separate one. But in leaving, I think we do want to leave, if you are in that age group and you are looking for something, my own take is like, college is still a great place because you can get a lot of exposure. I know we contrast on that, but I would say it's still a great place to find lots of people even this last company with these teenagers, one of the guy was in Harvard and that's where he spun his idea. He only made it 3 months. And he dropped out to build this company. The other one, I think, went to Brown, and he lasted like 3 days. But it's still a place of great ideas and great minds to kind of come together. We'll always have a need for that. Like, we've always had a way to learn on the side, right? You could read a book. And then in our era, it was like you could watch YouTube and learn anything. But that's not a replacement for an education institution where there are a lot of research to really learn from. So I'd say even if you right now are looking at going into robotics and you're scared because you think, by the time you're done with your degree, you'll have no need for you and there won't be any jobs. I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think there will just be even more jobs.
There'll be more jobs because, I'll tell you why, because the technology will be cheaper. Resources will be cheaper. Right now we talk about resources as limited commodities and so hard to manufacture and process, but that's just going to get easier and easier and easier with tech. And so eventually, like I was saying to my dad, like if you live long enough, a helicopter's got to be very cheap because you're just going to say, can you build me Optimus 20? Can you build me a helicopter? And it's going to go out into the backyard. It's going to dig up all the minerals, process them, and make you a helicopter.
That's
You
the
know what I mean?
reality.
Like,
Then reality sets in as you crash and die. Then we learn
Yeah.
that, all right, maybe different
hopefully-
AI models.
hopefully the coding's fixed by then. Yeah. Hopefully it learns to code by then.
You heard it here, folks. Hostile dysfunction. We'll talk to you later.